The content on this channel has been created for adults. If you're not at least 13 years of age or older, then please do not watch this content. Sorry, dude. Come back when you're 13. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. Always a pleasure to be rocking around with all you beautiful people around the globe. We are back with another reaction request. This one right here is from Kelmo Ho 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 Ho. Kelmo Ho 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 Ho. Kelmo, I love the nickname this time around, aka Kel the Dude, for you guys who haven't been paying attention. Kelmo Ho Ho Ho, thank you for the reaction request. Kelmo wants to hear 10cc I'm Not in Love making of documentary. So this is the making of I'm Not in Love documentary. He wrote this in a shout out. He goes, hashtag spread love not hate, which you guys already know is my favorite hashtag of all time to be dropping. So thank you for dropping the hashtag spread love not hate. It is something that is very important and vital that we do each and every day. He wrote, dedicated to us all. The song came out around the time of Bohemian Rhapsody when that was released, the other greatest multi-track recording of all time. I'm super excited to watch this. I don't know the song in question. I don't know it, but maybe at some point we should do the actual song, unless they play it in this documentary. I don't know. So let's enjoy this together. Thank you, Kel, for shouting this song for everybody. And without further ado, from me, for Kel the Dude, aka Kelmo Ho 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 Ho, and all of you, let's get off tap. Let's go.
Kevin said, why don't we do it almost a cappella, using totally, for the backing track, totally voices, all voices, not Beach Boys type of voices, just a wall of sound. I said, yeah, and how are we going to do that? And it was Lowell who came up with the idea of making tape loops that we could run ad infinitum, forever. We'd just run them. So we spent another 3 weeks then recording three guys, Kev, Lowell and Graham, just singing "Ah" in the studio onto the 16-track machine. Each note had 16 tracks of 3 people, if you've got your calculator there, and we had to record a chromatic scale of 12 voices that would fit any chord in the song. We put the tape loops around this Studer stereo machine and then out to mic stands with little rollers on the top, so the tape would run through there and we could tension the machine properly. Then I fed across to the 16-track machine and filled each of the 12 tracks with a separate note.
Okay, guys, I think I've actually done, after hearing that little bit, it sounds like I know the song. I think we have done this. Yeah, very, very familiar sounding. I think it goes, na na na, da na na. Dun, dun, yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, so I think we have done this. I think we have. Sometimes when you're doing 1 million videos a month, you tend to forget a little something. Okay, this is really interesting. I really like this. This is very informative, and it's good to hear how, not just only a great song, but a song from back in the day, how they would go about making, these songs happen. Because, as being a producer myself and, a music person, singer, songwriter, all that stuff that you guys know I do, I've been doing it from the modern era, you know what I mean? So we do things differently now, it's a different process altogether. But back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and all that, they had a different way, each era, where they were with technology at that point in time. And that's how they would get it done. So it's interesting to hear this.
Of these masked vocals. So I think eventually there were 256 voices on these tracks, and at the same time we'd recorded a very, very simple backing track, stereo backing track, with me on electric piano, little rhythm guitar, and Kevin playing a bass drum on a Moog synthesizer, just to follow it. So don't forget it. It's just a silly phase I'm going through. The four of us actually got around the control desk and started to feed the chords as they were changing within the song.
Yeah, that's the one. I've heard that song before. Yeah, that's a freaking dope song, dude.
Down with the faders, and whilst we were doing that, I'd locked all the faders with a piece of gaffer tape, so they're all around about minus 24 on the faders. But because it was a chromatic scale, there was this lovely sort of hissing, breathy sound, like when you walk in a concert hall and people are just talking very quietly, but there's this wonderful hiss.
All of which probably explains why nothing had ever sounded quite like that record before, had it?
It was a milestone in recording. The production was absolutely beautiful, and the process that they went through to create this epic record was incredible. Bearing in mind the time, this is 34 years ago that this record was made.
Wow.
So a lot of the techniques that were used on this record were done for the very, very first time. Especially...
Yeah, see, that's what I was saying, like they were at a different time then. And yeah, a lot of things that, you would do in a recording studio back then, like now, I'll be using automated faders, like everything's automated. You can do so much now, even without needing a big mixing desk. When I had my first recording studio, matter of fact, my first 2 or 3 recording studios, I had the big recording desk because, the big production desk, because that was the thing, like you rocked, you still had, look, there's still some studios that rock those these days, still big studios and things, but I thought you had to have one. So in my studio, I had one. But now I'm like, dude, I don't even need that. Like everything I could ever possibly want to do, I can do within just using plugins and software plugins and things, on my computer and stuff, So, yeah, but this is, really dope.
The vocals. Now, as Eric mentioned, the vocals were recorded individually across the 16 tracks and then bounced down. Now, luckily, at the very, very front of this multi-track, there's the remnants of one of the tracks. So this is actually what one of the multi-tracked voice loops actually sounded like. So if I isolate that first, and that very slight blip you can hear, that's where the splice would have been in the loop. So although you can actually hear the loop as it goes through with the splice point, in this case, when you had the other 11 added, all at different splice points, the loop point would have been inaudible. So now if we start the actual multi-track up, you can hear what Eric was talking about, this sound that does sound like you're entering a cathedral or some hallowed space.
Wow.
And what we're hearing is a result of them playing the mixing console as if it was a keyboard come instrument. So each fader had one particular note on it. So putting, say, 3 or 4 faders up would create a chord.
Wow, that's cool how they did that. These days, if I wanted to sample, I'd sample, those different voices, and using my, my keyboard, my keyboard controller, I would literally just, have each one of those keys assigned with the sound that I want. So I would go, C, D, E, for example, would all have different sounds on them from samples. And then I would play those in a chord that way. I would just be like, being able to easily just press them and do it. But it was really cool how they used the faders. And it was like, okay, we've got each of these sounds assigned to each track on the big production desk there. And we're going to turn up the volumes to create those chords. That is brilliant. That is really cool thinking, man. See, it's how you had to be there back then. You had to think outside the box and figure out, how can we create that? How can we do that? So cool, man.
They knew what the chord progression of the song was. They could go through it bit by bit. They could, of course, drop in and out of the stereo track that I'm now playing to correct any errors in their mixing. So this final track is a result of all those man-hours of work. It's absolutely beautiful. The other addition is that there's a second track of the same thing but played at half speed, so that creates this low octave. This is particularly noticeable on the bit where it goes and you can hear both the high original pitched vocals and the low octave vocals.
So Eric's using his half-speed trick again, which he obviously likes. I don't remember another record that starts off with the vocals being produced and then you playing along with it. But this seems to have started with just the vocals.
That's right. They created a guide backing track just to make sure they mixed the vocals in the right sections with the right balances. But once they had their correct vocal track, they then proceeded in the control room, which creates a very, very different atmosphere, played in the control room the rest of the instruments, the Fender Rhodes.
That's dope.
The electric guitar.
Woo.
And curiously, no drums. This bass drum was actually created by a Moog synthesizer. Now, Lowell had one of the very first Moog synthesizers in the country, and he'd learnt how to program it, so he was able to create this unusual, soft bass drum sound, which Kevin played, being the drummer, throughout the song. In fact, a real drum kit would have been overpowering on this record, so it suits the subtlety of the backing track. So you're right that they played along to a pre-recorded backing track, which is unusual. So once they got the backing track to their satisfaction, they then subsequently overdubbed in the traditional sense. So, for example, the other backing vocals were sung to a finished track. So let me isolate those first of all.
This is really interesting, man. Like, I really love this, being someone who's countless hours of working on music and being in the studio. Like, this for me is so cool because I always say this, man, like, it doesn't even only refer to music, but just life in general. You have to pay homage to the greats who've come before. You just have to do it. It has to be done. It's one of those things where you have to give that love and that respect, And they're the ones who paved the way for everything that we have now, Woo! That sounds good.
You wait a long time for me.
Ooh, that's crispy. Oh, that's crispy.
Ooh, you wait a long time. Ooh, you wait a long time for me.
Now, there are many things on this record that people will be so familiar with, and I think one of the most familiar things is the spoken voice. The only time that there's not a 10cc person on this record. Now, this is Kathy, the studio secretary. And once again, to make my job easy, Eric has recorded the effects on Kathy's voice. So what you're hearing is exactly as Eric recorded it, including the fact that it fades out as it loops round.
Be quiet, big boys don't cry.
Woo! Okay. That sounds nice. I like it.
Big boys don't cry.
Gotta love that Pommy accent. You can kind of hear a little bit in it as well, which I was telling you about the accent thing just in another video. Like, it's amazing how certain accents can really come across, very, very, sexy, cool, like just really, really amazing how different accents sound, and like I'm intrigued by accents. I actually love accents.
Big boys
So that's Kathy with the nice voice.
And it is so integral to the record, you can't imagine that not being on there. And just a great production trick. Now, talking of things that are not on there, there's one part of Eric's lead vocal that never made it to the final record, and luckily they never erased it. So here is an alternative lead vocal at the bridge section. Now, when they came to mix the record, or just before they came to mix the record,
sounds
Lowell
good.
had suggested that they didn't really like that section, so he played the melody on a piano, and that's actually what's on the finished record. But at the same point on another track is Eric's original vocal with some other lyrics.
Don't feel let down. Don't get hung up. We do what we can.
Woo, silky, man. Absolutely silky. Absolutely silky.
Do what we
This is probably the first time this has ever been heard outside of the studio, and probably for 34 years. So is that a case of we are so familiar with the finished record that by now hearing that section it sounds out of place? Had we grown up with that part, maybe we'd have got used to it.
Any other little tricks and surprises you've discovered?
Yes, this little sounds interesting. This is a music box, and there's 2 tracks of it. It was double-tracked. Again, it's another one of those little production tricks that maybe not so familiar to everybody first time on listening, but now I'm pointing it out to you. I think if you listen to the record again, it'll be very familiar.
How did they do that then?
They told me that it was one of those toy music boxes on a string that you pulled to make it play its little tune, and then by double-tracking it, it creates this very slightly strange Doppler effect. Plus there's a lot of echo and effects added to it, which creates this sort of somewhat surreal sound. It fits so well in the track.
I'm Not In Love was presented with 3 Ivor Novello Awards. Best
Wow.
Pop Song, International Hit of the Year, and Most Performed British Work. To date, the song's been heard on American radio over 3 million times. And if
Wow. That's got to be more by now. I'm sure whenever this was made, this surely more than 3 million times by now.
our calculations are correct, if we allow a full running time of 6 minutes per play, and we run those plays back to back, it would be roughly the equivalent of 34 years of airtime for a single released in May 1975.
Wow. That is incredible. Well, this is from 2010, roughly, I think, or at least this is when this was uploaded. But, wow, dude. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. You know, it's the thing that I always get kind of a little bit annoyed sometimes in general when I'm doing, song production, when I'm doing video production, even for that matter, when I'm doing anything. There's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't appreciate. They don't appreciate just how much time, effort, sweat, sacrifice, like mental stress, trial and error, frustration. There's so many things that go into creating content of any sort, especially music. Music is one of those things where you have a process. It's not like you just do it and it's done. It's like there's methods, there's processes, there's different things. There's a flow that has to happen to create those masterpieces that you hear. It's not just boom, snap your fingers and it's done. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. They only talked about some of it. They didn't even talk about the whole process from A to Z completely in great detail. You know what I'm saying? There's so much that goes on to creating these things. And it's you never get the love and the respect and appreciation, I think, most of the time for half of these things. It's people don't realize. I think it's merely just people don't realize what it takes to get there. What it takes to get there. It's like even a chef who's created this fine meal, which again, it's something else I don't get credit for. I feel sometimes I never get real love. I'm a freaking master in the kitchen. In my restaurants, you come, you get the food. People compliment you and say it's great. Oh, this is delicious. Thank you. But if they really knew how much time it took for that to happen, the prep, the work that had to go in all the way, the distance to get that on your table, no one would leave without freaking really thanking you to the moon and back. You know what I mean? And people don't realize there's just so much behind the scenes that goes on for you to enjoy the things that a lot of times you just take for granted. You don't appreciate the process. A lot of people just don't appreciate the process. And a hit song like this, a song that has absolutely such an amazing sound to it, and something that really, once you watch something like this, you realize, you go, damn, they put all that effort and work to create that uniqueness, and in some ways groundbreaking song, you know, doing things that hadn't been done, or rethinking the way things get done in order to achieve the desired result. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Was this 1960 something? I wish there was more info. I think they said in the documentary, but I think it was late 60s, early 70s or something. But it's just really remarkable, you know, just to see the advances and just how technology has actually changed how we do everything. And I mean, gosh, I hope I'm still alive in 200 years to see how far we come in 200 years, in 300 years, and 500 years. You know, I'm praying that some way, somehow, I get to see all this, how it continues to evolve. I'm that person who wants to live for 500, 1,000 years, forever, really. And if I had the option, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but if you could choose, and maybe you can, and I don't know, but if you could choose to either continue living on Earth, like be immortal and live on Earth forever and ever and ever and ever, and never have to go anywhere else, or you could choose to go live in heaven, or choose to go live in, be reincarnated. Like if you had, you know, the different beliefs of different processes of what happens when you die, and you could literally choose your next situation. Maybe you can, from a spiritual point of view. There's a lot of people who believe your soul chooses the next life and all this kind of stuff and whatever. But let's just say you could literally just go, you can make one choice. You have one choice to make. This is what's going to be forever, for the rest of your duration of existence, forever, ever. Like your immortalness, your soul, whatever, will live this way forever. I would choose to Earth, man. I really would. It's probably mainly because this is what I know, you know. But I'm curious. I want to know tomorrow, and 100 tomorrows from now, and 1,000,000 tomorrows from now. I would love to see how it all plays out, you know. That's just me. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. So, fingers crossed, man. Praying, wishing upon a prayer. Somehow, some way, it's possible. I hope so. Don't know. Anyways, gotta have faith. So, guys, I love each and every one of you. Thank you for the awesome request. That was really freaking cool. Kelmo, ho, 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 ho. Ho, ho, ho. Only the one time when you can say ho, 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 and it's a good thing is when you're thinking about Christmas and Santa Claus. Otherwise, ho, 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 good thing, not so much. Anyways, I love you guys. As always, remember to show it to the fullest and keep it off tap. We are out. In case I don't want to freaking fall and drop everything on film, that just sucks. guys. We're gonna do a little mission right now. Alright, this is just for you guys.